Five, four, three, two, one. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Here we go. First off, Google challenges Amazon with new shopping service. What I'm not clear about is when you go on Google, which I don't use Google much. Actually, I use DuckDuckGo because I don't like tracking and I don't like cookies. And I don't like monopolies, all of those things. So I encourage you to give that a try. And also, usually I get less stuff thrown at me and more sensible. But Google does have a shopping button, and you can click it. A lot of times it's Amazon, but or Walmart or Target. So anyway, Google claims that they're releasing a new shopping platform. I'm not quite sure how it will differ. It says that companies have partnered with Google, and their ultimate objective is to provide a one-stop shop for customer purchase journeys, starting at product discovery to purchase event. And again, I'm not sure if that uses the Google Wallet or if that just sends you to the retailer. Don't know. But I know that tracking sales on Google is much more problematic than just tracking clicks. Google's biggest challenge will come down to its lack of a mass distribution center. Yeah, duh. And in fact, most people don't even get that that's the main thing we like about Amazon. My kids all have Prime, and they like that it can come the next day. And that's more important than all of the marketing hype most of the time. I want what I want when I want it. That's the consumer's cry, and Amazon delivers. And that would be the number one thing. Amazon delivers. What Google will cook up, we're not sure. But a lot of people want to partner with Google just to deflect traffic away from Amazon. Okay, now we're going to go after something really, really different. And I think we're going to start with this one because it has a nice picture. Yesterday, I spent an hour listening to George Gilder talk about life after Google with the director of Hudson Institution, which is based at Stanford. And George has a book that was out last year called Life After Google. And, I wasn't, my expectations were fairly low, even though George in the 90s predicted that our computers would be as small as our watch. They would guide us through or navigate us through the streets of cities, and they would understand when we talked to them. So he's had a lot of good predictions, which means he's got a lot of connection with reality that most of us don't. That's what Scott Adams says. The way you tell how well your worldview connects with reality is how well does it predict the future. And we won't get into that in detail. But George pointed out that Google is starting to operate under constraints, that they have some 80 warehouses around the world like the Dalles. And it's by a river, and George points out that there used to be aluminum plants there because the electricity and the water were basically almost free. And now Google needs free electricity and water to cool all of these processors. And 3 warehouses, each one 10 million cubic feet with 75,000 computer servers linked. Interestingly, it takes 80,000 to replicate 1 second of human brain activity, but we won't get into that. George didn't mention that. So George goes on and says that every 10 years or so, according to Bell's law, a new architecture for handling information and data takes shape. And he says it's been about 12 years since the last sort of big breakthrough. He says there's a liberal globalist theology that Google bodies and the fallacies its empire are built on. The first fallacy is that advanced information technology needs to be centralized to be efficient and accessible. I noticed that Microsoft and Apple in their financial reporting cite their cloud platforms as some of their major money-making schemes. I asked my IT guy about 20 years ago when the term the cloud came out. I said, what is the cloud? Is the data just up in the air someplace, everywhere? He said, no, it's time sharing. Remember the mainframes in the 60s where you got to share a little bit of time on a big computer and that's the only computers there were? I said, that was awful. He said, I know. That's the cloud. So if your IT people tell you the cloud is the answer to all your dreams, tell them, you know what? Terabyte hard drives are cheaper than ever. Why should we share our data at some 10 million cubic foot warehouse when we can just use it ourselves? Maybe we can keep it more secure. Something to think about. But by selling the cloud so effectively, Google has basically uncorked all the information of the world and stored it in their genie bottle, and they decide how you get it back, which is the heart of what George has to say. And they hide it behind slogans like, you can make money without doing evil. The need for information crosses all borders. The second fallacy is that Google is not selling services, but giving them away for free. But Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, which still makes money the old-fashioned way by delivering products and services to customers, says, if the service is free, you are not the customer, but the product. Oh, George. The Google philosophy smacks of disdain for the money grubbing of bourgeois society, though its income still depends on advertisers who do the actual money grubbing. What a scathing criticism. And yet, that probably explains why the Google search is so ridiculously lame. What do I mean? Let's say you have a puzzle, like you want to know how to do a pivot table in Excel. And you ask Google, how do I do a pivot table in Excel? You'll get answers from 2007, 2012, 2015. Never mind, all the buttons have moved since then. If Google is so smart, why don't they understand that this is a technology question, a software question, a moving target, and only answers within the last year are relevant? I think I would like to set the Google default at 1 year. Don't search the rest of the world. I don't care unless I turn that off. All of their defaults are permanently stupid. They won't let me, because I'm not the customer, remember. They won't let me save my defaults, even though I log in every day. Something to think about. You are not Google's customer. You are Google's product. And the third fallacy is that we're on the verge of the great unification between human minds, where you'll upload yourself to the Google Cloud and they will store your brain and let it talk to everyone else. Unguarded, free to be manipulated. That we're on the verge of a world run by artificial intelligence. As I already pointed out, if Google's the best at artificial intelligence, their search stinks. Just FYI. But there was something more profound in that Hudson interview. He explained that back in the 20s, scientists were convinced that all of behavior, all of history, could be explained on a determinist model based on Newtonian physics. That if you knew all of the data now, you could predict the future. Does that sound like marketing predictive modeling? That's exactly the same. And an Austrian got up in 1931, and he showed that all mathematical systems, he proved mathematically that all mathematical systems, all theories of science depend upon axioms and principles outside of that theory, outside of human perception and human intelligence. He was very disturbed because he wasn't a God-fearing man that he'd proved God. And he and Einstein used to debate these things. But some of the tools he developed allowed Alan Turing to build what we now know as the predecessors to the computing that we have today. But Google is based on that same fallacy. The fallacy that with enough information and artificial intelligence, the computers will think. But computers don't generate surprise. When you get surprises from Google, it's because they have random number generators built in. So yeah, they'll surprise you, but they're not surprising the programmers. Fascinating, because as you know, if you watch my show, I've been pointing these things out literally for years. We need to rethink our computer theology and understand that while computers are excellent servants, they make demonic masters. I love the PC. It made my career. It enabled me to think creatively on my own without having to plug into the mainframe and timeshare. And now, every day, we get closer to removing that creative masterpiece. But George says it's coming back with the crypto economy, where we will own our ideas again and not have them subject to aggregation, manipulation, and some monster cloud deciding who gets to see what. I'm John Miglautsch. I hope that makes you think. Like and share. Share shows you care. Your friends will think you're smart.